Welcome to the career event Opportunities with Russia or in Russia. This event is organized by the Finnish-Russian Commission for Scientific and Technological Cooperation Working Group for Social Sciences. In accordance with current COVID-19 recommendations and restrictions, this event is being streamed from Dipoli Lumituuli Auditorium without an audience. On site are only our speakers and technical staff. During next 1 hour and 45 minutes, we will hear career stories from our experts working with Russia or in Russia, and discuss with our experts the following questions. Is there a need for Russia-related expertise in the job markets? What kind of expertise would that include? Which other professional skills can Russia expertise be combined with? How can one build a career in or with Russia? What are the future prospects of the Russian economy? And what can we expect from Russian politics after 2024? My name is Susanna Niinivaara, and it's my pleasure to moderate this afternoon's discussion. You can comment and send questions and comments via the chat, and we will be reserving time answering them or discussing them. Dear audience, I'd like to give Professor Riitta Kosonen the stage for the opening words.
Okay, good afternoon, and thanks for the panelists already in advance for this valuable event and your insightful discussion during the day. As Susanna told, this is a seminar organized by the Finnish-Russian Scientific and Technological Commission and its working group on social sciences in particular. And this working group and commission is organizing under the Academy of Finland and Russian Academy of Sciences. And in this working group, we have members that represent organizations who produce information on Russia or also need Russia-related information in their work. So it means universities, research institutes, ministries, Confederation of Finnish Industries, Finnish-Russian Chamber of Commerce, and so forth. So during our years of existence, which has been more than 50 years, we gather information on Russia, for example, in excursions around Russia. We've been, if we think of the map, in the north, we've been in Murmansk, then in the south, in Sochi, in the west, in Kaliningrad, and in the east, Vladivostok. So we've been all around Russia, also places in the middle during the decades. And we got to know the socioeconomic and political development in these regions, and also create links between scientists. And the other task that we have is that we spread this information on Russian economic and political and scientific development in Finland. We organize various kinds of seminars, and the topics have ranged according to the time. For example, we have witnessed Cold War, the times of Soviet Union, then we saw the disintegration of the Soviet Union, we saw the early restructuring of the 1990s, then we saw the rapid economic boost in the early 2000s, and now we have the period of more geopolitical tensions and slow economic development at hand. I must say that these activities and seminars have been quite popular, generally speaking, and there has been a lot of interest on Russia issues in Finland. Russia has been an important trading partner, and students were eager to study Russian language and attended doing business in Russia lectures and so forth. And also, still 20 years ago, Finland used to be, I would say, in Europe, a particular country with a lot of Russia expertise. Also, as relates to the number of PhDs that were written, we had a lot of PhDs that focused on Russia at that time. But I must say that in the past few years, in our working group, we have become a little bit worried about the existence of Russia expertise. As I mentioned, that we have members from various organizations, and when we discuss about this situation, there is increasingly this concern and worry that, for example, ministries say that it's not easy to hire people, find people that have enough Russia-related expertise, that such expertise is not as well available as it used to be. So these are the worries that we have noticed. And we've started to discuss and think among ourselves, and that's also why we organized this discussion today, is at what kind of Russia expertise and how much do we actually need. We can think that during the times of the Soviet Union, it used to be clearing trade expertise, and then in the 1990s that didn't work anymore. You had to find new experts, and that's the time when they hired interpreters who took care of the business in Finnish companies' business in Russia. And then you had Finnish expatriates in subsidiaries, especially in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And then slowly they were replaced by Russian citizen, Russian experts. And now we are witnessing, for the first time maybe, a period when also Finnish companies are leaving Russia. So how much and what kind of Russia expertise do we actually need business-wise in Finland? And at the same time, in the public sector, we have need of Russia expertise not only on bilateral, political and international relations, but also Finland and Russia are part of Arctic cooperation, Barents cooperation, Barents-Euro-Arctic cooperation, and so forth. So there are various regional, international initiatives and agendas where we need to cooperate. So we need expertise also there. So I would say that the interest, especially in Finland, the interest in Russia and studying Russia and learning and specializing in Russia, it's been going a little bit like fluctuating like this according to the geopolitical situation and the economic potentials provided in Russia and by Russia. So the question today is, what kind and how much do we need Russia expertise? And also, what's the role of language? Because sometimes it's been a bit disturbing that there's been this expectation that people who deal with Russia and specialize in Russia, they must know Russian language and learn Russian and so forth. But that kind of expectation doesn't concern people who deal with China. So how necessary is Russia? So I think this is enough for my introduction to the theme. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion, and I'm really grateful for having such wonderful experts in the panel. And Susanna, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Riitta, and hopefully we can address some of the concerns you may have about the level of Russia expertise, as well as the interest in Russian affairs. But it's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have Jekaterina Lindberg, consultant from Ernst & Young Climate Change and Sustainability Services. Then we have Anna-Riikka Mahlamäki from SOLEMO, Development Manager and International Operations. And then we have Timur Uzbjakov, Sales Director of Dewaco. And Katarine Lindstedt from the Ministry of Interior, advisor to the Permanent Secretary. And then we have Juha Väätänen from the Lappeenranta University of Technology, Professor of International Business and Emerging Markets. Welcome. And then we have Juha Väätänen, Pasi Kokkonen from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Russia Unit. Most welcome. And I think that let us now introduce ourselves a little bit more and how our involvement with Russia started. My involvement with Russia started when I was koin peruskoulun ala-aste primary school in Lahti. And that time, long ago, in Lahti, it was possible to choose Russian language as the first foreign language. And we were a bunch of kids who did that. And I think we were mostly interested in Russian language because it was so different from all the other languages that other kids were studying. And then I was involved with Russia when I started to work as a journalist and ended up working as a correspondent in Russia and journalist specialized in Russian affairs, and I had pleasure to work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the Consulate General in St. Petersburg. So that's my story. What's yours?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. So my name is Pasi Kokkonen. I work as a councillor at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. I've been working there 13 years now, or 13 and a half. And but with Russian affairs, I've only been working a bit more than a year at the Unit for Russia. And I'm mainly dealing with bilateral issues with trade and economics. Like in my profession, so we change duty stations quite often. It's, well, in Finland and also sometimes working abroad, of course, part of the job. And it's also like this idea of a general career is something which we are encouraged to do. So I really wasn't any kind of expert in Russian affairs when I started there for a bit more than a year ago. Being a Finnish diplomat without any thorough knowledge on Russia, I think it's well, that can be a handicap, and this is one reason why I wanted to work there. I don't think that I will, during my career, work in Russia, and unfortunately I do not speak Russian, but wherever I will be working, so it's an advantage to know Russia a bit better. And quite often with Finns, we are considered as Russia expert, but I mean, it doesn't come in your DNA. I mean, you have to study it anyway. So perhaps this is the reason why I'm working there where I am working now. Thank you.
Thank you. What about Juha Väätänen? How did your involvement with Russia begin?
My Russia involvement started, I think, late 80s. So I had opportunity with a couple of friends to visit Leningrad that time. I actually liked it very much. Then in the region, my region, there was a lot of people who were involved in the trade with Soviet Union at that time, and I heard a lot of war stories from them, and I got excited, and I applied as an exchange student for Tallinn University of Technology that time, which was part of the Soviet Union. I spent the spring after that. I did my thesis on transition of Baltic countries, which was a very exciting topic for me. And since that, it just took me over. Then I spent time in London, working there in the finance sector with Eastern Europe. I went to Moscow, and then let's say that there was a little bit hiccup in Russian economy in 1998. Then I decided that I will go to academia. I did my doctoral dissertation in the transition of Russian companies, and since that I fall in love in academia and teaching about Russia, researching Russia, collaborating with Russian partners, and I'm still in this way, so I never returned back to business. I'm actually happy about that. Thanks.
Thank you. And Katarine Lindstedt, what's your story with Russia?
Okay, good afternoon all of you listeners also there online. Thank you for the invitation. It is a great pleasure to be talking about Russia again. I haven't been talking about Russia for a couple of years now. So my career with Russia started actually when I was working at the Ministry of the Interior there at the International Affairs Department, and I was the coordinator for EU's external relations, and of course for us at the Ministry of the Interior, one of the most key important foreign relations is the one with Russia, and because of that I was of course then coordinating our bilateral and also the multilateral affairs for several years. And then at 2017, I was sent as the first representative of the Ministry of the Interior to Moscow, to our embassy there. And I had the great honor and pleasure to be working there for a couple of years in the field of internal security and migration. At the moment, unfortunately, I don't have to do that much with Russia, but of course, due to my background, I follow the issues deeply and have always the passion for the Eastern affairs also. So, yeah, great to be here tonight with you. Thank you.
And of course, I think due to COVID-19 situation, none of us has been traveling that much in Russia lately, but maybe that will change in near future. Let's hope that. Timur Uzbjakov, what about you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation here. Nice to be here. So my actually involvement started when I was born into bilingual family. So I come from a family where we talked Finnish and Russian at home. So the Russian language came to me as a nice gift from my parents. But since that, when I studied international business in Turku School of Economics, before I got in to study, I was thinking that I should use the Russian skills that I have and try to in the future work with also by using Russian language and the understanding of the culture and everything. So the first, the work-related first involvement was when I was a student and the first summer. So I got a summer trainee position in a company which actually gave me train tickets and said that you have that go to Russia to 11 cities, all except Moscow and St. Petersburg, and do market research. And so I traveled the whole summer there and all of those cities were with population of over 1 million. So I traveled from Finland until Jekaterina and then slowly back towards Finland. But that gave the first really work-related touch to the Russian market, what it actually means. So that was a nice opportunity at that time.
I have to ask, can you mention some of those 11 cities that you visited during that summer job?
Yeah, so actually I was following the Trans-Siberian Railroad, so Nizhny Novgorod, Kazan, Perm, Yekaterinburg, then going a bit south also until Sochi. That was part of the cities, and at that time it was more convenient to travel with the train than fly from, because if you fly you had to go back to Moscow and then fly back to another city. So, but that was nice.
That's positive.
May I ask, what kind of market research did you do and how?
Well, actually, that was quite in a way a simple one. So go to the city, look around. Is there construction going on? If yes, take some photos, report of it, talk with the local people, and try to find out our competitors there. I was working in a company which was manufacturing construction materials. So that was, yeah. So I conducted the market research report and got a lot of experience from that summer.
I think all of us who like traveling envy you for that job you had. Plus, it's also personally, I envy you for getting two languages from home, like to have Finnish and Russian from home. It's such a asset.
That is, but I also highly, how could you say it? Because the Russian language is difficult for me. I know, like, let's say the basics, how to talk about the weather, the food, and everything. That you get the language skill at home. But then when I go to more detailed, it's difficult for me also to talk in Russian language. So when I've met during the working career a lot of Finns and other foreigners that know Russian language really well, that's an amazing skill. I appreciate that a lot when I see a person like that who can speak Russian language really well.
And then Anna-Riikka Mahlamäki, what is your involvement with Russia? How did it begin?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I ended up in love with Russia purely by chance. I am an economist by training, and I had been doing I did my bachelor's degree and lots of maths and stats and econometrics, and I have some talent for languages. So I thought, okay, to start with my master's degree, I'll also start at the Helsinki University Language Center, something new. Then I calculated, okay, Spanish is too easy for me because even the Americans learn it. And then I thought, okay, Chinese would be interesting and useful, but I will never be able to write and read it, most likely. And then I thought, okay, this was in 2001. Russia was still deep in trouble after 1998 collapse of the economy, and it wasn't seen as a potential market, or it wasn't sexy or interesting like it soon became. But I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. I knew nothing about Russia. I went to the class and I fell in love with the language immediately. Absolutely immediately. I knew that this is my thing, but nothing further. It was just a hobby. And then a few years later, I was nearing to completion, writing up my thesis and everything, and I was in the social sciences faculty on the hall somewhere, and an acquaintance came up to me and said, "Hey Anna, you're studying Russian, right?" And I said, "Right. Will you come to St. Petersburg with me? Because we have 2 places for Aleksanteri Institute at the FINEC, and I'm the only one going." I was like, "Okay. I don't actually need to graduate yet. I still have some money for my student grant left, and I'm done with my studies, so why not?" So this was autumn 2003, and then for the spring 2004, I went to Russia to study at FINEC in St. Petersburg, and that's the University for Finance and Economics, as it was called then. I don't know, it's changed name since then, I think. Anyhow, but the Lion Bridge building, the former original central bank building of Russian. And so I went to St. Petersburg at the beginning of February 2004, I think. My first travel ever to the East. And that was it. I knew immediately that this is what I want. It's funny, I can't even explain it. It was so different. Such a short travel. It was nearly 6 hours at the time by the train. But anyhow, it was close. And it was so different, still somehow familiar. St. Petersburg resembles, it's much more grand, but there's some similar architectural features to St. Petersburg as there is to old center of Helsinki and so forth. So it was familiar, but yet very different. And of course, then I had done my studies already, so I was finally able to also enjoy the student life I had never experienced, because I also did a lot of sports and that was my primary interest. So I started going out. I had no training anymore in the mornings and so forth, so I partied a lot that spring, and it was fun. And all this, just made it a life-changing experience altogether. And anyhow, because I'm an economist by training from social sciences faculty, I had targeted a career in civil service. So I then graduated after the spring, and I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the unit for what was then the Northern Dimension in the section for East, Russia, and tried out diplomatic career as a junior civil servant or like support staff, and realized very soon that I'm too impatient for this kind of work. That was then. Then after that, I've lived 7 years in St. Petersburg and I've learned patience. It was a question of principle for me to every year go and give in my personal income tax declaration. So I queued hours and hours at the time when there was no fancy telephones either. So I've learned. Anyhow, I tried civil service, wasn't really my thing. I did a stint at Bank of Finland at the BOFIT Institute as an economist, and we met then.
We met that time, yes.
And then the lure of business just was too big. For you young people of today, it's impossible to imagine how sexy and full of potential was Russia in 2004 and 2005. And there were so many opportunities. So I was able to pick a place that I wanted to go to work for. And then I moved to St. Petersburg to work in business, which I had never thought I would do, and started learning hard way. I had learned Russian fairly well during my exchange year because I moved out from the international students' dormitory after 2 weeks. And I sublet at Babushka's and learned language really during that time, unlike all the other Finns who stayed at the dormitory. And then I was able to start working, and it was my principle from the beginning that I speak Russian as much as I can until I have to change into English, and that helped. And yeah, since then I have been working in business. I stayed 7 years in St. Petersburg, and then after, just again, purely good coincidence, in end of 2013, I decided that it's time to move back. I was quite tired. It was hard work. It was different from living in Finland. And I moved back to Finland, and I was invited to work for the company that I work for now. SOLEMO is the mother company of the SOL group of companies. And I work there in international business together with the owner, directly under him. And we have the best business of our entire group is in Russia.
Interesting. And we must emphasize that since you told that it was 6 hours by train to St. Petersburg when you first started to travel there, and now it's only 3.5. So it is really, really close. People in St. Petersburg, they tend to joke that that the capital of Finland is closer to them than the capital of Russia when you see how long it takes by train. Thank you very much. And Jekaterina Lindberg, how did your involvement with Russia begin?
Yes, hello everyone. I actually have a similar background with Timur, so I grew up in a bilingual family, so learned both of the languages from the childhood. But my first career experience was also an internship, which was probably equally random as Timur's. I didn't have to do market research in different cities, but I worked in the State University of St. Petersburg for 3 months. And yeah, for 1 week, we just went around of different restaurants in St. Petersburg because there was this random Finnish book project. And second week, I was, interviewing people with my boss. And the third week, I was just performance artist just because my boss had a hobby of art. So it was a very, very random experience. But I hope everyone gets to experience internship in Russia. It's really, really fun. And it was through SEMAT, I think it's Opetushallitus now, who organizes those. Later, I had a couple of jobs in Finland. I worked in university, bank, didn't relate to Russia. But then I started my career with Russia in Chamber of Commerce, so Finnish-Russian Chamber of Commerce. And I worked as a business advisor for 2.5 years. and specializing especially in sustainability market research topics. So I worked with a lot of companies who do clean tech or work in environmental fields, and I was doing the research for them on the Russian markets, organizing events, doing promotional materials, connecting them to the right people. So that was very, very exciting experience, kind of dive into the sustainability topic in Russia. And continuing with that topic, I now worked at EY as sustainability consultant. Russia is not now my main area of work, but we have still projects with Russia. For example, this autumn we had internal audit with Finnish company who have production in Russia. So we were doing the interviews and all the material analysis for those. So I maybe have like two views on Russia, both working with Russia, but also Russia gives you this niche playing field. Even if you do something else, you can still have a lot of opportunities to do with Russian things too. That's my background.
Thank you. May I ask, which of the topics that you have studied could you mention to be proven to be kind of useful when making career in Russia or with Russia?
Yes. So mine was actually quite precise. I did my master's degree in global sustainability. So sustainability kind of became the main topic I have been worked with ever since. And it was the perfect combination because of the Russian language and know-how, and then combining with sustainability. That was kind of the perfect match to start the career with.
What do you think, Anna-Riikka? What should one study? What could be like kind of useful for making when making career in Russia or with Russia?
Today, I think that the primary thing is to have some real expertise, not general knowledge, but real expertise on something. So whether it was company from like corporate finance or whether it's engineering or whatever. But nowadays you have to sell yourself against really good Russian candidates. So you necessarily need to have this language, but that doesn't help you very far. If you have to have something special that you sell to the employer. So really hard know-how in something plus the language.
You think, actually we can take the language issue now. You definitely think that one needs to know Russian language.
Even today, yes, I personally believe that. I've seen it so many times when I was working in Russia that however well the Russian person speaks English and however well the Finnish person speaks English, they don't quite meet in the middle and they don't understand each other 100%. Maybe I've not had the most talented English speakers that I've seen negotiating, but typically it is so that there is the core or the essence missing from the understanding of the parties. And then I, as a Russian expert who knows the company, can step in and say to the Finnish guy that he actually means this and that. It's difficult to say whether the Russian person deliberately didn't say aloud everything or whether his language skills were lacking. But I sensed this, that because neither of them were speaking English as their mother tongue, they really had trouble understanding each other. And if you're working for a company and want to protect your owner's interest, then you have to understand Russian. There is no way around it. Otherwise, you never know what's going on in the company fully.
Thank you. I think we may have some different opinions on this language issue. Of course, our bilingual friends have advantage on this, but what about the other panelists, please?
Yes. No, actually, I only studied Russian during my professional career and beside my work. So I'm not totally fluent at all, actually. I can read and I can understand most of the discussions, but I couldn't go to a negotiating table and have the whole discussion in Russian language. It is, of course, a great asset, but I would encourage also those ones who don't have necessarily the perfect fluency to try Russia, because, nowadays, for the researchers, for public sector specialists and so on, many of them who are in their 30s or under 40, they have studied also abroad. Some of them worked abroad, and they are quite fluent in many other languages as well. But of course, and then again, we luckily at the public sector, we have great interpreters, and that's also a really valuable asset for us. So I would say that go for it. Of course, learn if there's a possibility for that, but it's also possible to jump into the deep end of the pool and try it out, I would say.
Yes, of course, I have to admit that my experience in business in Russia comes from sectors where, I mean, we're not talking about global companies, we're talking about big local companies. And then there's no global structure of hiring talent globally and educating them within corporation and so forth. So it also depends. If you choose to go to Russia, you can choose to either go to a big local company, or let's say a Finnish company who has subsidiaries in Russia, or you can go to a truly global company like Kone. And then in that case, it's more secure platform to start with less advanced Russian skills, because then the company itself is already global, and people there who have been chosen and recruited to that company also speak good English, and you know that there is a corporate culture and there is corporate governance and everything is in place. So it really depends on the company as well that you choose to work for.
I would be more on your side. I would say that I would encourage to just go and see. Of course, as a professor of international business, I know that understanding culture or let's say anything which makes the business more successful. So it's understanding the culture, understanding the context. The language helps. Language helps a lot, but it's not. I don't think it's a necessary requirement. I have, of course, longer perspective, because I remember I visited Soviet Union. I only speak English that time, and then spoke with some person, and he told that he was studying English in Soviet Union. And he was asked, "Why you studying English? Because are you planning to use it somewhere?" And we are coming a long way from there. And I see with students coming from Russia, the language skills are extremely good with English at the moment. So I would say it helps, but it's not necessary. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm the one with the worst language skills in Russian. I've just done a couple of months basic course, and I remember basics, Spasiba and Das Vidania, and that's about it. So I work at the MFA, don't speak Russian, work with Russian affairs daily. In a way, we are even encouraged at the MFA to apply to the Russian unit, even if we don't know Russian language, because this kind of broadens the the amount of people who have some kind of knowledge on Russian issues. Of course, it would be an asset to know the language, and sometimes we have to draft some documents with our Russian colleagues. So now what happens is that I'm drafting in Finnish, and then we translate it into Russian, and then it's sent to Russian, and then they send us their comments in Russian, and then we translate it into Finnish, and it like takes ages. Of course, if my Russian would be perfect, so we could just do it in Russian. But as Katarine said, so we have great interpreters. That helps a lot. And then especially the younger generation of civil servants in Russia, so they speak really good English. And then also one curious fact is that The Russian diplomatic service works in a bit different way than in Finland. What I've understood is that quite many of them, so they are specialized in some certain area or country. So quite many of my Russian diplomat colleagues, they have been working with Finland for years or perhaps even decades. They have been working in Helsinki, in Moscow, and most of them, they know totally fluent Finnish. So with my Russian colleagues, quite often use Finnish. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's move on. In your view, what does Russia have to offer for young professionals now? Who wants to start? Please, Anna-Riikka.
Referring back to what I said earlier from times 15 years ago, world has changed and Russia has changed, and let's say that when I was young, it was rather easy to get employed in Russia, to work for a Finnish-owned or international-owned company working in Russia, because they wanted Western people with good English skills that they could communicate to the headquarters with, or Finnish skills in Finnish companies' case, but understood the local culture and local language. And like it was said here, the younger generation of Russians speak really good English nowadays, and it is possible to get employed to work in Russia as a Finn if you have the hard skills like I mentioned earlier, but you can't expect any more like it was in my time, that you get paid expat salary, you get housing subsidized, you get a car, and your children's education is paid for. This is unfortunately not the case anymore. So you go and you are locally recruited with local conditions. But the world is open, I mean, Russia is open for that, so you have to have the working permit, though, requires that you have a special skill that they can employ you on a highly professional status. Otherwise, it gets really difficult. But it is doable, and it's a big country with various industries. I don't know how to get employed in Russian public sector, but in companies, there is plenty of work, and they have a lack of employees, like everywhere else nowadays. But especially in Russia, there is plenty of opportunities. So you can go and start a career there, but you can't expect a lifestyle anymore like we did 15 years ago.
Timur, what do you think? What does Russia have to offer for young professionals?
Well, actually, from my own experience and background, I'm looking at this question from the point of view that working in small and medium-sized companies, which Finnish small and medium-sized companies which are exporting to Russia. So basically, it's just, you live in Finland, but you are in close relationship with Russian and Russian companies. So in that case, you are in a way, not competing with the Russian colleagues in a way, and that's true that the expat era is probably a bit over already, and because there are a lot of local good talents in Russia, so basically, and international people who have studied abroad in Europe or somewhere. So, but I think the main thing is that there is a lot of small and medium-sized companies in Finland which need employees in different sectors in business, marketing, or programming or engineering with Russian language skills or understanding of the culture or something. Some background with Russia, work experience or something, and more, and even though the business with Russia has in a way decreased in the recent years, I still think that there is a lot of opportunities for especially small and medium-sized companies in Russia which need these new young professionals.
Thank you. And what about the Finnish public sector? What kind of opportunities with Russia the Finnish public sector can offer for Russia expertise?
Yes, actually, I was thinking about that before coming here, and also I was really happy that it's the title of the panel was now renamed for working with Russia, also not only in Russia. For my sector, there are a few opportunities also for when you are at the beginning of your career or even when you are still studying. We have under the Ministry of the Interior the Crisis Management Center, which recruits and trains the civilian crisis management personnel for EU and United Nations missions abroad, and there are some missions where there are opportunities to work with issues with relation or in relation with Russia. So that would be one path maybe to take. And also what I did before going to Russia, I participated in a few of the election observation missions, which are also now starting January, organized by the CMC, Civilian Crisis Management Center, Finland. So those are really interesting. If you want to go for a couple of weeks to some election observation mission. For the Duma elections, there was none this year, but I was there previously and it was really interesting. And then if there are any students who have background in policing or border guards, we have at our embassy and also at the Consulate General and the consulate some police officers and border guards working as operational cooperation liaison officers. So there are a few examples even at the Ministry of the Interior to have a career with Russia.
And I'm sure Pasi wants to add to this.
Yeah, please. I would say that there's plenty of possibilities because, Russia, it's a very big neighboring country and it will stay there. And of course, we have to have cooperation in many fields with it. I'm like one of my main tasks in my current job is that I'm the secretary from the Finnish side of the Finnish-Russian Intergovernmental Commission for Economic Cooperation. I'm always having difficulties, even in Finnish, to remember the name. And there are several working groups within the structure of the Economic Commission. So, and this is how I've got to know a great deal of just absolutely brilliant colleagues from different line ministries in Finland, because these working groups, they include working groups on transport, forestry, energy, customs, agriculture, innovations, education, construction. So this means that we have how could I call them, co-workers or liaison officers at different ministries. And these are people, most of them who know fluent Russian, who have been working in Russia before, and now they are experts in these fields that I just mentioned. Then of course also other institutions under these ministries. For example, border guard, as you just said, I mean or customs. I mean that should go without saying that it's good if you know Russia and Russian, and or for example, Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority. I mean they also have cooperation with Russia. So I mean, yeah, you're a nuclear physicist and you know Russian. Okay, there's your job. And then, of course, our Ministry for Foreign Affairs. As I said, I think they were kind of pleased that people like me who don't know Russian are working in the unit, because there are quite a lot of diplomats who are also in our system who are more or less specialized in Russia, that they have been, serving in our embassy in Moscow, and then perhaps Kiev, and then perhaps the general consulate in St. Petersburg, and then when they are in Helsinki, so they are working at the unit for Russia or in our department. So perhaps this group could be enlarged as well. So welcome to join the MFA. I mean, if you have Russian skills, so that's definitely an asset.
Great. So there's plenty places for students who are expertise in either in language or Russian affairs. That's good news. Anna-Riikka.
Let's not forget Business Finland, who just during last year or during this year even have recruited to St. Petersburg and Kiev two of my and Katja's acquaintances who have previously done business careers and decided to try the government sector, and they are now how would I translate that? Anyway, working for supporting the Finnish business in Russia or Ukraine. This is one way as well.
Please don't tell anyone that I forgot to mention those.
No, we are totally silent about that. What about in Lappeenranta University? There's a great number of Russian students studying there. I wonder if that creates some kind of opportunities to make a career with Russia or in Russia.
That's actually, I was asking if I could get to speak to. So I think it's I would say wider the education sector in Finland. So we have 13 universities and a lot of universities applied sciences. So all of them, not all of them, but many of them, they are collaborating with Russian universities. So there is a lot of I think opportunities with education cooperation between Finland and Russia, and then also in science, which I mean then in the research. So there are certain sectors. Now I go out of the business. So Russia is very good in traditional hard sciences like physics and mathematics. A lot of leading universities and a lot of my colleagues are collaborating with them because they have very, very good laboratories, very high expertise. They are publishing in the top journals in the world. And then in Finland we have certain other sectors which is more business oriented, sustainability, clean tech. So in education there is and research, I think there is a lot of, the sector is quite big in Finland and it's huge in Russia. So I see a lot of opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's now move on. Oh, please.
Can I just quickly add also from my part, because obviously EY is an audit community, and there is also a big Russian desk. Some other big fours have auditing committees like specializing in Russia. So also for business students, there are big opportunities not only on the expert sector, but maybe what is common to all of the comments we heard today is that although we're talking about Russia as something special and interesting, it's kind of same rules apply to Russia as any other jobs. So certain fields, obviously engineering, business, law, very hot topics, very easier. So Russia just creates this additional know-how that you can utilize, but otherwise it's very similar qualities that are appreciated.
Please.
Just a short comment, because I every year I start my teaching, I'm thinking that how different is Russia? I'm starting at that, and the difference is getting smaller all the time. So this I think is very important to keep in mind.
Anna-Riikka.
And I have to add, I already mentioned an acquaintance working in Kiev, but there's actually another good acquaintance working in Minsk, and then I have my aunt works at the HAMK, selling education to Kazakhstan, and they have students coming in. The Kazakhstan state pays for them to be trained nurses, I believe, or something like that. But anyhow, I mean, it's not only Russia, it's a big Russian-speaking world, or part of Europe, part of Central Asia. That if you speak Russian, you can work in many other countries outside Russia, next to Russia, close to Russia, or with at least the same language. It does open doors.
Thank you. Let's now move on and talk about Russian economy. The past decade in Russia has been marked by extremely slow economic growth, which has become worse due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. It's also understood that the current difficulties began prior to the Russian annexation of Crimea, after which both the European Union and USA placed sanctions on the Russian economy. I would like to hear the panelists, what's in your view is the outlook for the Russian economy in the near future, and what are its long-term prospects? Who wants to start? Please.
I would say that the future of Russian economy is fully in their own hands. So I think there is all the knowledge to make the right decision, but it's more like a balance of power and which decision come and which will be implemented. But I think the country has, they have all the answers, and I kind of see that the external pressure will come, and Russia has to move to green direction, sustainability. This is evident thing to my understanding happening. I'm actually have to confess that I've been writing a paper with a Russian colleague and American colleague about the sanctions, so academic research paper, and I can say that the impact of sanctions based on our research is actually quite small. So to me they are more like cosmetic, and we've been studying the adaptation of Russian companies. So I don't think sanctions are the big. I think it's more like a political decision and is in the own hands. But you need changes, structural changes in the economy, and I wait them to come. I don't know when it will be, but then growth, to my understanding, would be better. It's currently bouncing from COVID, but the long-term growth rate is maybe 2% you're expecting the longer perspective. Thank you.
Pasi, please.
Yeah, thank you. What I have let myself understand is that in short term, so the growth rate is quite good. It was something, I don't know, 3-4% this year, but in the long run, so it doesn't exactly fulfill its potential. It could be better, and this is, I mean, just as you said, so it depends on the decisions that they are going to make. They seem to be quite slow in modernization and diversification of their economy. As like I was checking the figures, so I think it was 40% of the export revenues they come from fossil fuels, and that's not very sustainable. The share of Russia of the whole world's economy, it's decreasing. Some paper I was checking before coming here, so the biggest problems at the moment that the business in Russia has to tackle, so there were COVID, the ruble rate, the political situation, and this including risk for new sanctions. But then also one a pretty curious case, I think, it's the lack of workers. So they would need more workforce, and I think this is partly like the migrant workers from Central Asia who went back during the pandemic and never came back. Thank you.
Anna-Riikka.
There has also in recent years been an ever-growing brain drain to West. So young educated people and even middle-aged educated people feel constrained. They can't live the life that they would like to in Russia anymore, and they are emigrating in big numbers, hundreds of thousands, to the West. And these would be the people who would make the change. Unfortunately, I think they are educated and they are open-minded and willing to change, and they can't do that, and they decide to leave.
And some of them are coming to Finland.
Some of them are coming to Finland. We know a lawyer who specialized in servicing Russian clients in Finland and establishing for them like startup companies and so forth. And and he speaks to audiences like 30 or 40 people coming from Russia to listen to how to start a company. And so these are the educated engineers who want to move to West to work in a free democracy. And of course, the population growth, despite the recent years where monetary support and so forth has encouraged families to grow, have more children, but generally people are dying out, and now 1 million people have died of COVID. I don't know who exactly these people were, whether just the elderly or working age as well, but the population is falling, and this is a big concern.
Timur, please.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was a student, I had a much better understanding of Russian economy than now, because I was following it with closely, reading the studies and research and everything. But I think that Russia needs to be open and global economy to attract more international business, which is really needed. And like mentioned, a lot of skilled workforce are leaving from the country, and then the companies where I work meet them when they are living in Latvia or Lithuania. So we talk in Russian language with them. But I think that we talk about the external pressure, but there is a big internal pressure in Russia to make the changes. So there is a large demand and willingness for economical growth and increase of consumption within the average Russian citizens.
And to add to what you just said, so I think this, we can see this protectionist, how could I call it, wave in Russia at the moment, which doesn't exactly help or encourage foreigners to invest there. So this is one thing to tackle as well.
So we think that, in this economic climate that you just described, what do you think that Russia has to offer for international, including Finnish businesses in coming 5-10 years? Timur, please.
Yeah, from a salesperson point of view, I think that the question should be what Finnish companies has to offer for Russia, for Russian companies in the next years. Because the Finland as an economy has to increase its export sales, and Russia as a neighbor country with 146 million inhabitants is, in a way, considered as a large economy, should be much more attractive than it is now.
Please.
No, I have always this kind of attitude that if somebody has a problem, it's your opportunity. So Russia has a challenge for this green transition, which is coming, which is kind of putting a lot of pressure for companies. So we have a lot of solutions for that. Would it be green energy production? Would it be other kind of clean tech solutions? So I think there is unlimited demand for that, and I think same, like you could say, happened. Let's say the previous presidency in United States, that companies are moving faster than the admin, and I kind of see that the same is happening in Russia, because companies, they have sales, international sales, and they have to do what customers want, and admin may be reacting slower. So I see this kind of tidal wave of green transition coming to Russia, and it's a big opportunity for Finland.
I was thinking, Jekaterina, since you're working or your work involves climate change and sustainability services, what kind of markets you see?
Yeah, probably one good example is that, of course, we work as consultants in sustainability, and I just recently spoke with our Moscow office. EY also has a sustainability offering in Russia too, and they said like this autumn is the busiest like it has ever been. And that shows certain activity, especially big industrial sector, that is kind of pressured to doing this sustainable transition. And also when I worked in the Chamber of Commerce, actually very same what Timur just said, I'm not like concerned that Russia doesn't have opportunities. I'm more concerned, do we have the competitive offering in Finland to answer that? So the opportunities are big, especially I guess right now it's B2B sector. That is dominant one. Maybe later when there will be more purchasing power, it's going to be maybe more B2C. But big industrial sector is a huge opportunity right now because of the sustainability topic is really, really moving forward in Russia too.
What's your analysis? Why is it moving forward just now?
Well, maybe one example that we work a lot with right now is this EU taxonomy, which is the classification system, which is supposed to classify what are the sustainable economic activity and then kind of redirect the financial flows towards that. And I don't know, did many people notice that actually Russia has done also taxonomy system very similar to European one. There are some additions, but Webbank has developed very similar taxonomy. So there is an aim of doing the same thing, that redirecting financial flows. So it's actually like what was said before, there is quite a lot of similarities between Russia and Europe. The thing is that maybe right now we're going both in Europe and Russia to this topic that we kind of doing the easy steps in the sustainability. And later there will be point that Europe will reach much faster than Russia, but the point of the big decisions. So the big changes only to come, but right now Russia is kind of started doing these kind of easy steps, which is like energy efficiency, circularity, closing the loops, doing the recycling. So
I do love your optimism when you say that the energy efficiency is like the easy steps today.
Well, maybe easy in that sense that it doesn't require of refusing completely your fossil fuels. So that will be the huge question in the future, like what do you do with the fossil fuels? That's going to be the difficult question. So before that, I do consider things will be easier before that.
Yes, Pasi, please.
Yeah, thank you. Your question was at what Russia has to offer, and I wanted to start answering like that it already offers quite a bit. That because it's our third biggest trade partner. I think it's number 5 in exports and perhaps number 3 in imports, I think. The estimation is that there are already like 900 partly or totally Finnish-owned companies present in Russia. I think there was it like 3,000 companies who are exporting to Russia. And per capita, we are the biggest investor in Russia. So we are kind of present there already. So, I mean, clearly it has to have something to offer to us. And also this, I wanted to comment on this green transition. And I was scared that you were going to exhaust my list. I was, I did some research before coming here. So I'm Jekaterina as well. So I found like fields where there might be some possibility for Finnish companies. So I found construction, transport, energy production and energy efficiency, water and waste management, digitalization, healthcare technology, forestry, agriculture, mining. So I guess, you just pick one.
Just short comment. This what Jekaterina mentioned, this taxonomy, I think is a super important thing because how I see the thing that we are moving from self-claimed sustainability to EU-defined sustainability, and companies are now fighting to be sustainable. But I think a lot of companies who claiming to be sustainable at the moment, they will live outside the definition of sustainability, which means that they have to invest heavily to be sustainable. And this was happen in Russia, same like it happening in Europe, because half of Russia's exports are coming to European Union.
Thank you. Separating business from politics is a task in any country, and it may be fair to say that in Russia this is particularly difficult. if not impossible. As already mentioned, the Russian economy as is deeply intertwined with the fossil fuel economy. Russia is one of the world's leading producers and exporters of oil and gas. Pasi, Kokkonen, could you give us an indication of exactly how close this relationship of politics and fossil fuels is in Russia?
The answer is no, I can't.
Is there anyone else? Or would you
even,
like
even,
to
even if I can't, I can always elaborate on it.
Thank you.
That's a diplomatic answer.
We do like that diplomatic start of your answer.
Well, like in general, what I've understood, and I'm really not a specialist in this issue, like really. So economy and politics, they are in general very much intertwined in Russia. And then I was checking some numbers. So if 40%, almost 40% of the income, export income comes from fossil fuels, and then 14% of the GDP is based on fossil fuels. So I think this is an indication that it's most probably even more intertwined, like in this sector. But I'm afraid this is as far as I can elaborate. Sorry.
Who wants to add something to this?
No, maybe I could comment one anecdote, because I was in this economic forum which is organized in Moscow once per year, this Kaidar Forum, a few years back, and there was a president of largest bank of Russia, this German Gref, and he was discussing that Stone Age didn't finish because world ran out of the stones, and I think we will end up the same situation with oil also. So that will happen eventually. That oil we have is not pumped out from the ground. So that he was referring, and he was giving warning to Russian energy companies about that.
Anna-Riikka, would you like to add something since you are economist?
I've been doing business the most recent years, so not using my economics skills so much, but of course I keep reading. I subscribe as an individual person to Vedomosti and keep reading it. There's a lot of articles about green transition nowadays, so it certainly is a topic in Russian business community. Politics is very much intertwined. Anybody who knows Navalny and his YouTube channel knows how closely it is intertwined with business. Unfortunately, I don't know how much. On the grassroots level, a small company or medium-sized company can do something in Russia, but big projects in this field, I believe, would be government sector projects, and to get involved in these requires political contacts, and this will be difficult to establish.
Thank you. I think we now move on discussing Russian politics for some time. And I will be quoting the Bank of Finland Institute for Emerging Economies, BOFIT, latest weekly monitoring review about the Russia and climate change. Due to the internationally recognized climate change, the world is currently transitioning away from the fossil economy to a world of sustainable renewable energy, although it's going slow. According to BOFIT, issues related to climate change have recently gained prominence in Russia's economic policy discussion. And BOFIT continues by saying that much of the conversation has focused on the risks facing Russia from other countries taking measures to deal with climate change. Actual impacts of the climate change have received far less attention, BOFIT concludes. thinking now that the politics and fossil fuel economy is related in Russia, how do you see this Buffett analysis influence in Russian politics?
Okay, help me out here then when I'm facing a loss of words. Well, they have to acknowledge what's happening. I mean, of course, they know that sooner or later this route is coming to an end. And there is a carbon neutrality plan in Russia as well. I think it's by 2060.
Yes, 2060.
At the moment. So this also tells that, that there's some awareness, of course. And then I think you mentioned earlier that there are demands both from abroad, because of course many Russian companies, they act globally. So especially from the international fora, so you get these demands on more green economy, but also from what I've understood, so more and more from within the country. And ESG, I've understood it's a very hot topic in Russia at the moment, and not only because of demands from abroad, but also from within Russia. And to lift up our role a little, so I'll mention here that our embassy in Moscow organized an event on ESG. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and there were some big Russian companies who were present, some Finnish companies as well, and supposedly this is it gets a lot of attention at the moment, and also there was a Finnish business in St. Petersburg event. It was actually last week, and there these questions, green transition was a big topic as well. And then another topic I don't know that much about, but Arctic, which is very important for Russia, and in the northern areas you can see the impact of the climate change easiest. And now we've, at least in Finnish newspapers, there have been articles on these cities that are basically, sinking in the ground because the permafrost is melting. So I guess there's no way of not seeing the impact. Thank you.
Please.
I completely agree with what Pasi is saying. There is big external pressure, but also internal pressure. And I think where internal pressure especially started was the whole waste management that was reformed a couple of years ago when I actually started in the Chamber of Commerce. That was the main topic I was working with. But it really came that when the problem hits the people itself and the news start telling about health issues, people have kids getting sick and things like that, then things start happening. And I think waste management and the whole reform has kind of led to larger discussion on sustainability. And now there are collapsing cities and it's like all around that cannot be ignored anymore. So there is definitely both from external but also internal pressure that we already see the changes that are happening. And it's going to be the big companies who probably come first, and then the regulators get the things together and start moving the big cycle. So it's definitely an ongoing process.
Do I understand correctly, Jekaterina, that you think that this kind of public awareness that was there around the waste management or non-management, that actually had an influence in what happened in that area in Russia?
I do think, because I started following the topic exactly when the reform started, and there was I could see that first it was about the waste management, that the topic expanded to being all the other sustainability areas. So I do kind of see it as one turning point that definitely happened to get the big awareness from the big public. So yes.
Please.
Just short comment. I come from the university which is very active in renewable research. So I kind of caught my ear there that revolution is not happening fast. If you're looking any forecast on renewables globally or any forecast of electric vehicles globally, all of them have been exceeded year by year. So I would put the time frame shorter than Russia probably expects when this is happening, this green transition.
So we have two optimists at least here in our panel when it comes to green transition and Russia. That's good.
Hopefully 6 after the panel.
Yes. Vladimir Putin is currently holding the position of President of Russia for the 4th time. The next elections will be held 2024, and Mr. Putin it has become possible for Mr. Putin to run again due to the recent constitutional amendments. Short round, what can we expect of Russian politics after 2024? We all know this is not your deep knowledge, and we are all kind of guessing that. Please, Timur can start.
Yeah, thank you. Whatever will happen after in 24 and later, I think President Putin and his closest team, they have probably quite clear plan for the next steps, including also at some point the change of power in Russia, as that is just inevitable. But I think the main question is that will things go by their game book or not? I think that's the thing. If their plans are fulfilled, because I think there is a lot of people who is not playing in 24 after that one by their game book.
Katarine, what do you think?
Well, whatever happens, we only hope and believe also that our good bilateral relations will continue. We will have the ongoing dialogue with our colleagues, and from my sector, of course, that the transnational crime is prevented, operational cooperation is going on, and the border crossings are smooth and flexible, and the people and goods are moving across the border. So that's basically what is going to happen also, hopefully, after 2024.
Pasi, what can we expect after 2024?
The first word that came to my mind was continuity, but what I've learned at the MFA is that when it comes to Russia, never predict anything, because Russia always surprises. So I really have no crystal ball. But I mean, for sure, there are some things that will still remain. Green transition, the climate change challenges, big challenges concerning the whole economy of Russia. They are still there, no matter who will be in power. They will still be our neighbors. And perhaps one thing that could be of interest is that what kind of traces did the pandemic leave in Russia? As I hope that we have got rid of it by then.
By 24, I do hope
yeah,
we have.
Please. Thanks.
Juha, what do you think? Can this green transition actually have some impact on what happens in 2024 elections?
I kind of agree, but I think Timur analysis was really nice. So there is a plan ready, and it will happen. I happened to be in Moscow when was the last change. It was in 1999 or New Year, I think, when the president changed, and it was surprised that time. And now actually a few years has passed. If you're thinking back, we are already 25 years. So I think clock is ticking evidently, and I agree with Timur analysis, and I wouldn't mix it with green transition, because you're talking about the future of the country, and green transition is, I would say, a little bit smaller issue compared to that even super important topic.
Anna-Riikka, what do you think?
I agree with Timur that obviously, of course, there is a plan for succession. Whether it's going to be 24 or 28, we don't know. I think the only hope to see Russia to become more normal in our opinion, country, is that the opposition gets its act together and they can establish a good candidate that people then would actually vote for. We'll see. I will not predict anything.
Thank you. Jekaterina, what do you think?
Well, 24 is just around the corner, so I'm not
That's
expecting...
true, it's actually, yeah, it's
yeah,
not
not
that far away.
expecting a lot of things to change in there, but I'm actually very interested to see what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years, because like this is kind of cliche, but the potential that Russia has, I think, is better than it's ever been. I mean, country with almost no debt compared to what Europe is right now, a country with huge amount of super smart people, very educated, know many languages, and think a lot more like us and are exposed to a lot of different news and cultures and traveling. So I'm very, very interested in what is going to happen in 10, 15 years, because there will be obvious generation shift, and I'm kind of relying on that and very excited to see what happens there.
Thank you. We are moving towards the end of our panel discussion, but there's one more topic. During the summer of 2019, the Finnish embassy in Moscow and Finnish Consulate General in St. Petersburg conducted a joint survey on Russian public opinion concerning Finland. According to the results, almost 3/4 of those surveyed had either a positive impression or highly favorable impression of Finland as a country. The highest score was among the age group from 18 to 24. As well as in the larger cities with Moscow and St. Petersburg, where in Moscow it was 86% who were positive towards Finland or very favorable, and in St. Petersburg 95%. I don't know if you can get this kind of numbers anywhere else in the world. One can imagine then that this is quite easy for Russians to work with Finns given this strong favorable impression. As a question to all panelists, how does this describe your experiences? Timur, please.
Well, the personal experience is that all the Russians that I have worked with in Russia have been really interested and in Finland, and they have traveled to Finland and everything like that. And I was actually surprised of this age group of 18 to 24. But now after thinking about it, I think it comes that probably this is a group which has actually traveled to Finland already when they were children. So probably they have built up the positive image from there. But then again, if you go outside of St. Petersburg and Moscow, more towards to the regions, the image of Finland is already, I mean, it's positive, but it's not that well known, or Finland is not that well known in those areas. So the competitive edge is not in the regions for Finnish companies.
What about Pasi?
If I'm not mistaken, so they have actually made even a more recent study, like this autumn, a similar one.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's exactly the one, but I think it is. And according to that, so it was in the northeast of Russia, so it was 89% who are very much positive towards Finland, which is, of course, great to hear. I'm not sure. I mean, now there's, of course, because we cannot travel freely, so perhaps it could be even more positive if people would have been able to travel as they usually do. I'm not a great fan of categorizing people, but in a way I would say that there's something, we do share something with Russian people. There's some certain, perhaps some, I don't know, love for melancholy in a way, and then some directness, I think. I don't know, of course I haven't been living or working in Russia, but quite a bit with the Russians, and I do find it easy, and I mean, they are charming people who I've been working with. Thank you.
Yes, I can directly continue from Pasi's comment, because well, in my experience, we all have these cool Nordic heads somehow, that even though sometimes it can be difficult to discuss some matters also, but we still can smoothly and coolly somehow resolve the matters. Myself, I've only always have had really positive experiences with my Russian colleagues and with my Russian counterparts, and well as with any other. So I don't see any difference in that respect doing international work also. So yeah.
Would you like to add something? Okay, let's move on. I do apologize if I was quoting the survey that is not the latest one, but I hope or the numbers are almost similar. In that survey made 2019, the best known Finnish brand was Nokia, which 63% noted. And other well-known brands included Viola, which I always think is amusing to have that Viola there, Tikkurila, Valio, Nokia Renkaat, Nokia Tires, and Fazer. I would like to ask what could be the new Finnish brand that is becoming to this list of best-known Finnish brands in Russia. What could be new Viola? Is there something from clean tech, for example?
Well, I kind of hope the new Viola will be the Finnish recycling system. So I hope every house will have outside a Finnish trash bin, so Europress or Malak, and then people would associate it with clean and Finnish and very good quality. So.
It's a good idea. Have you already suggested it to someone?
Yes, for 2.5 years in the Chamber of Commerce.
According to what I've heard, so it could be something to do with some healthy food, or then I think coffee is something that is like getting more and more popular in Russia. So perhaps it could be something, coffee related, or then it could be something wood based, like some new textiles made of wood or something like this. I don't know though what the brand could be, but perhaps.
Could it be a service, not the kind of actual product, please?
Yes, those trash bins, they could be brought by some service, internet-based service, I would say. That would be really Moscovite in a way to have it done in that way. But on the other hand, we have really good old things as well, and I think they have been missed during this pandemic times. So we are really happy to welcome all the Russian tourists back to our country and so on. So I think the nature and food and all that is still here, and it's still really valuable for the Russian tourists.
Yeah, I'm the region which is closest to the border. So yeah, my hometown is 50 kilometers from the border. So St. Petersburg is kilometer-wise a little bit closer than Helsinki, and Lappeenranta is city of 70,000 people, and there was a journalist who made a very thorough study. We have services for 250,000 people city, and that was because we had so many tourists coming, and I have of course a lot of friends who are coming over. So the one attraction is this is the shortest visit to abroad from St. Petersburg. Of course, Estonia is the same distance. And then the nature of Finland is a big factor. I have entrepreneurs I know who live in St. Petersburg, and they just love to come over weekend and have a relaxing Finnish mökki weekend, summer cottage weekend, like we do also. So they actually enjoying the peacefulness. So I think this could be the Finnish nature is the Viola.
Thank you. Please.
I am not sure about the tastes of Russians in gaming, but I think Supercell, for example, is among the well-known brands, but they don't know that it's Finnish.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's true. I see Riitta writing a lot, so she's eager to wrap up the discussion soon. But I have one final question, and it is: what fields should one consider seeking employment either in Russia or with Russia? What is your advice for the students considering career in Russia or with Russia? What is hot in that right now, please?
Well, anything and everything, I think. Any field you graduate from, just make it a bit Russia specific and voila.
Thank you. Anna-Riikka.
I think Katja already mentioned it a bit earlier that engineering, law, and finance, or kind of like business economics, these certainly, as an economist, like from social sciences, I was lucky I was there in the right time. It would be difficult. I was able to learn all these skills. I can read legal text in Russian nowadays and have negotiations, and I've learned to understand accounting and finance through my work in Russia. But it would have been a lot easier life had I studied hard sciences like that instead of social sciences with macro focus. Nothing, I mean, you can do anything always. You just have to have an open mind. But if you want to make it easier, then I would go for engineering, law, or business economics.
I do like this. You can do anything always. I stopped listening there. Timur, please.
Difficult to say any exact field, but I think the main thing is that focus on the sales on your product or service that you are working with, and it doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be good quality, because the times when the Finnish companies were exporting, let's say, some bad quality products to Russia, so that was always, okay, we have a bad batch of products, where should we sell them to Russia, they will be happy to get them. That doesn't work anymore, so they are really,
We do forget.
Yeah, so good quality products and focus on the sales.
Please.
No, well, I'm a generalist, and I would say that really have the passion for what you do, be proud of what you are doing, and just have an open mind, as said already before. So that will bring you far.
Excellent advices, please.
I would just maybe, we have a lot of business people visiting the university and telling their career paths. So I would say that career paths are amazing. So they don't go how you plan. So don't push to Russia. Is it not the time at the moment, for example? And then 5 years later, you just find, oh, I'm in Russia. So I mean that things go their path. I agree that the passion, do what you love, because life is long.
Pasi.
Perhaps I could add to that Russia always surprises, so you have to count on coincidences. But join the diplomacy. We need Russian experts.
That's a good advice. Thank you for our open-minded panelists. It's time to wrap up, and Riitta has agreed to join this time. And at the outset of our discussion today, you expressed some of concern about the level on Russia expertise and potentially waning interest. What do you think? May I ask for your closing thoughts on this? To what extent our panelists managed to alleviate your concerns?
They did, actually. Thank you. Thank you for a very insightful and very positive panel. I think this was very positive. I think it became quite clear that there exist a lot of job opportunities, not only in Russia, but also with Russia. As we were thinking of the title of this seminar, In Russia or With Russia, and I would say that we should have this in and with Russia. So there are a lot of job opportunities to young people. public sector, big companies, Russian companies, small and medium-sized companies in various kinds of fields now. And it also seems that in the future you were pushing about problems and structural change and, what kind of difficulties the Russian economy and politics would be facing. And still I was listening that somebody's problems are our opportunities. So it seemed that there will be the structural change is coming. Well, it's happening everywhere. It will take place in Russia also in the course of time, and it will provide also Finnish companies and Finnish professionals a lot of job possibilities. And also, it caught my eye that Russia is not that difficult and that different also. That, how should I say, you don't have to be a Russia freak to be able to cooperate and have business and job with Russia. It's enough that you have understanding, some kind of maybe language skill, but also some kind of understanding and also interest. I think it's important to have the genuine interest in what's happening there. As regards language, it seemed when I was listening to maybe it was the point where there was most controversy of, yes, definitely need. Well, it's not that, it's important, it's good to be, but it's not a restriction as such if you don't have it. How it turned to or translated in my thinking was kind of cultural understanding. That language is part of the cultural understanding, but you can also have this kind of cultural understanding person-wise. If we live close to Russia, it's, well, not now when it's this COVID time, but in principle, it's easy to go there and get to know the atmosphere and deal with people and get kind of understanding and kind of practice in cooperating with the people. I remember from the 1990s, there was this Kassimatti who was a good expert selling a lot of products in Russia. He didn't speak a word, anything else but Finnish, but he was a good salesperson. And it was something, he a lot cooperated with the Russians. And it was, I think, this personal way of communicating and personal cultural understanding. So something related to this that you are a person that can be international with the Russians. Then also what caught my eye and ear was this. I think we have both competitive edge and then we also have a competitive problem maybe. Because first of all, there was this mention that Moscow and St. Petersburg, they are the biggest market areas for us and so forth. And in the regions, the situation is not that clear for us. So we have a competitive issue maybe also to conquer Russian regions. And here my point was that it's not only anymore the question about how is it going in the Russian economy, is it competitive, how is it attractive and so forth, but it's also about how are we doing? What about the Finnish economy and the Finnish companies' possibilities to be competitive? What should we do? Are we competitive? And we should also look at ourselves. How are we doing? Our economy is not doing that great at the moment. So that's one. And also then the positive side there was this, and I would like to end with this one, is that we have the competitive edge, really we do, if the polls are that positive, if they really like us that much. So let's take advantage of it. Okay, these are the points that came to my mind.
Thank you. Thank you once again, our good panelists. Thank you, the audience. I think we end it here.
Yep.
And see you next year. This same,
I think,
not the same panel maybe, but the same subjects.
I think the topic is worth pushing. Let's continue with this one. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks for the audience also. Thank you.